Probably one of the most asked questions that a streamer receives, especially from new and returning players, is what class should I play? Well, after answering it for about 1,000 times on stream, I decided to just make a video about it. Hopefully this will help you in picking a class for your new and exciting future adventure in the world of Black Desert. Before I start, I want to make a point extra clear. I personally don't think you should be picking a class based on its strength, and I think this for a multitude of reasons. Reason number one, and by far the most important one, is that you should try to find a class that resonates with you and is tailored around what you want in the game. For some people, this could be just picking the most broken shit and call it a day. But for me personally, this has never been the case, and not just in BDO, but in other games as well. Maybe I'm just a filthy hipster, but I much rather play something that speaks to me, rather than whatever is OP and maximize my win percentage. Black Desert is a game that is meant to be played for a long time, and I know you've probably heard this way too many times, but it really is a marathon and not a sprint, and the best way to not burn out is to have fun. And for a lot of you, this could mean just play the most fun class for you. And that's gonna be a different class for each person. If you click on this video, you probably don't give a shit about my boring monologue on values, so let's get to the bottom of this. I have compiled a list of 5 classes who I think are the top 5 choices for you to play, either if you're a returning player, a new player, or you're just looking to play a different class. The parameters that I've used for this list are what I think is needed to have a complete experience on every content in the game, so every form of PvE and PvP. I'm talking about grind speed, strength in 1v1 or large scale, and in some cases also how accessible a class is. Starting from number 5, I'm actually giving this spot to my beloved Sorc. PvE wise, she's in a very good spot. She might not be the best in lower level grind spots, like Manshaums or Bloodwolves, because of the lack of mobility, but she makes up for it in endgame, where she's easily one of the best classes and can compete with all of the other top PvE classes when it comes to threshold per hour. Mechanically speaking, Awakening can be a bit heavy on the wrists, but Succession makes up for it if you're looking for something more relaxed. For PvP, Sorc is somewhat of a niche but well-rounded class. In 1v1, given the right knowledge of your opponent's class and your class and some practice, you have a decent chance at winning most matchups. One of the biggest struggle here is when you're fighting heavy block classes, since you don't have a grab, but these are still winnable, just not very fun to play. In open world, Sorc can be the ultimate rat class. Here you can be the infamous cunt that is in a ghillie and just iframes instead of 20 people. You can be of impact in quite a few different ways. I would say the only thing that you can't really do is either chase someone down or peel for your allies. For Node Wars and Siege, you cannot provide the same thing. You have a pretty good AoE AP buff and some really solid burst. As I said before, it's kind of a niche class when it comes to PvP, so you don't want to just overstack Sorcs, but you'll always bring something to the table. The best thing about playing Sorc is that you obviously get to play the coolest class in the game, and with the sickest combos, the gear requirement for being competitive is slightly lower than other classes, since you don't need as much tankiness. But keep in mind you still need DP. Please don't be that guy with 300 AP and 200 DP. The worst thing about playing Sorc is that it's not an easy class to get into, and is very frustrating at times. But hey, you got quite a few resources to learn on this channel. Alright, going to number 4, I'm gonna pick something that might sound controversial, but please listen to what I have to say before you leave an angry comment and destroy the dislike button. My pick for number 4 is Nova. Now, Nova hasn't been out for that long, and so far she's been received with mixed feelings by the community. Let me start with my main point. This is the latest release by Perlabis, and it's safe to assume that a new class needs to be good. I'm not saying necessarily broken, but at least good enough to drive sales. And since she's new, Nova is getting a lot of attention from PA. Almost every patch so far, she received some sort of quality of life improvement or straight up buff, with many more on the horizon. Either you think Nova is shit or broken now, you can be sure that PA is going to try their best, so the community gives the class a chance. Anyway, starting with the PvE, Succession has kinda been trash, but Awakening is crazy. It's probably the best class at low-level grind spots, and by far the best class to grind rare pieces like Infinite Potion or the Archaeologist map, since she has the best mobility in the game. And endgame, she has a crazy clear speed paired up with the best mobility, making her just a top tier pick. For PvP, Awakening has a really high skill ceiling and isn't exactly noob friendly, but the potential is insane. Her vacuum is one of the most obnoxious and broken mechanics in the game, and the mobility makes you decide when you want to be in and fight and when you want to go out. Succession seems to be a bit undertuned right now, but as I said, she's receiving buffs almost every week, and I wouldn't be surprised if in a few months she's going to be a really good group fight class. The damage is already really good, but she's missing some small quality of life features before she can really shine. Overall, my reasoning for going Nova is, as I said, this is just a solid investment for the future as the newly released class. Both Awakening and Succession are fun to play, and the PvE is really solid. The worst thing about playing Nova is that the class has a pretty steep learning curve, and both Succession and Awakening have kind of a niche place in PvP. Alright, now we get to the big boys league, the top 3. I think I have to give the third spot to Striker. It might not be the flashiest class or the one with the hype play potential, but it's just overall solid and really easy to get into. PvE wise, this is probably the most recommended class of all right now. You can get really high trash loot with usually less AP compared to other classes, and it's considered incredibly easy and chill to grind with. In PvP, the class is just very solid. You can handle everyone in 1v1, and you can either peel or be a disruptor in group fights. It definitely scales down in bigger fights, when you have significant less impact. As long as you grab those cheeky wizards, then you're pulling your weight. The best thing about playing Striker would be the crazy good grind speed and the fact that you counter wizards, and how easy it is to pick up. The worst thing is probably that you need to get some gear before you actually do some work. If you're a squishy Striker, then you won't do much. Number 2 is a class that rose straight from the bottom from last year, and said class is Valk. Succession Valk is notoriously good and easy when it comes to PvE, and the crazy amount of protection that you get from your passive, plus the protected skills, allow you to grind endgame spots with ease, without having to worry about getting CC'd. PvP wise, Valk is one of the most versatile classes right now. If you play Awakening, you'll have one of the biggest impacts in group fights, with both your vacuum and the support abilities, and obviously the 100%. Succession is also incredibly strong. It's one of the best 1v1 classes currently. The damage is insane, and the CC resistance can make a good and geared Valk unkillable. The best thing about playing Valk right now is that you have access to one of the most versatile classes in the game, with good damage, good support skills, and solid PvE. The worst thing about playing Valk? Well, there's a reason I'm putting this class as number 2. There's not that many downsides to it. Some Valk players feels like Awakening is a bit outdated as a class, but you can't really go wrong picking this class. Now, you've probably seen this coming from meteor distance, and you likely got it right. The number 1 pick is Wizard, more specifically both Wizard and Witch. Let me first explain why I clumped these two into one place. First of all, they share the same role in pretty much every situation you put them in, and while Witch is slightly worse than Wizard, she'd just be number 2 instead of number 1, and would take away 1 spot to a class on the podium. As I said, they fill pretty much the same role, and with that I mean they are the best assassin, healer, rogue, support, bar, DPS, buffer, necromancer, glass cannon tank in the game. Now, before I get some Witcher's main in the comments foaming their mouth about how Wizard sucks in 1v1, boo fucking who, they struggle against some matchups, but everything else in the game, they're just superior. I honestly don't have to talk much about this class. If you've seen it, you know it already. And even after protected area nerf, the vast majority of siege guilds still run a solid 60 to 80% Witchards in their composition. It absolutely blows my mind that this class hasn't received any nerf yet. The best thing about playing Witchard right now is that you get to play the game with cheats on, and the worst thing about playing it is that you have to endure the hate from the community for playing it. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. I shouldn't have to say this, but these are obviously my opinions, And my best recommendation would be trying every single class for yourself and see what fits you the most. I'm curious what you think are the top 5 classes to play right now in Black Desert, so let me know in the comments your list. Links to socials in the description and on screen. Big shout out to Surfshark for supporting my content. See ya on stream or in the next video. Kisses.